The movie begins with Liam, our favorite beta, working with Hikari, a kitsune in a Japanese restaurant that also acts as a prison for the evil trickster spirit, the Nagitsune. One day, a mysterious man with a hood walks into the restaurant, implying that he is aware of the fact that everyone present is a supernatural being. The hooded individual is revealed to be Harris, the supposed deceased chemistry teacher from Beacon Hills. He launches an attack and releases the Nagitsune, demanding retribution against Scott and his companions in return. In Los Angeles, Scott and Deaton operate an animal shelter and clinic, and they also occasionally lend a hand in the community. In the first scene we see Scott in action. He demonstrates his expertise by saving a young girl and her beloved dog from a burning building. After getting the pet examined, Scott watches as the girl and her family depart, appearing wistful and sad. Deaton speculates that Scott may have some unresolved longing or regret. As they lock up to leave, Scott sees the dead Allison knocking on the door and asking for help the same way she had done when they first met. The animals in the shelter start barking as she disappears, and Scott runs into Chris Argent, Allison's father. Deaton and Scott are surprised as Chris says that for the last 2 weeks, he has been seeing and hearing Allison as if she is real. They think that Allison is caught between life and death and suggest performing a ritual to put her soul at peace. We cut to Lydia, who starts hallucinating as well and ends up drawing something cryptic in trance. She and Scott reach Beacon Hills and go to Oak Creek, where Allison was killed by the Nagitsune's Oni, and gets flashbacks. They regroup at Scott's old home with Chris and Jackson, who tagged along with Lydia. She shows them her cryptic drawings and that she needs help because she doesn't use her banshee powers fully anymore. They ask her why, and Jackson suggests it may have something to do with Styles. Both Chris and Scott are not too happy to see him, but he deciphers her drawings and sees that it is the Nemeton, the sacred tree where they need to do the ritual. At Beacon Hills, the pack's mischievous ways are continued by Derek's son, Eli, as he keeps stealing Styles' Jeep. Elsewhere, Mason, who is now an officer, Sheriff Stilinski, and Derek, who is their consultant, are at an arsonist crime scene. Derek urges the sheriff to call Styles, but he isn't willing as his son is busy with the FBI. Mason constantly keeps getting calls about Eli stealing the Jeep, and Derek goes to stop his son. At home, Derek is angry with Eli. They argue and end up on the topic of Eli not being able to wolf out. Eli says he cannot turn because he may not be a werewolf in the first place and walks away. Derek tries to reconcile by asking him about the lacrosse game that night and sees that Eli has snuck out. Parrish returns Styles' Jeep to the Hale Auto Shop, which is run by Malia. She greets him by jumping on him, and they end up having sex. After they are done, Parrish looks at her sadly, and they continue an unfinished conversation about relationships as she says she doesn't want one. They are interrupted by a message from Lydia, and Malia goes to her. As Chris gets ready for the ritual, Deaton comes to Beacon Hills with a Japanese engraved bullet of Chris that he finds suspicious. He keeps asking him riddles, and as Chris keeps answering, the Nagitsune that had possessed him appears. Deaton throws mountain ash on him and frees Chris from the trickster, who flies away. Malia meets Scott and Lydia and has an awkward reunion as they ask her for help in finding the Nemeton. Lydia is happy to see her, but it seems that Scott and Malia are seeing each other for the first time since they broke up. They run into Eli, who tells them that he sleepwalks and knows where the Nemeton is. Once they find it, Malia sends him packing and they start the ritual. Following a quick storm, nothing happens. As they turn to leave, Allison materializes on the Nemeton, unconscious. They are shocked and drive her to the hospital. At the hospital, while Scott, Lydia, Malia, and Melissa wonder what to do, Allison wakes up and runs out. She is disoriented, and all she remembers is that she is a werewolf hunter. Scott finds her and tries to stop her from leaving, but all she wants is to kill Derek. She sees her father, and as Chris calls her, she runs away. Meanwhile, almost all the officers are called away to another arsonist crime scene. The only officer at the station runs into the Nagitsune, who says that he is a kitsune. He steals all 9 of his tails and summons 9 Onis. At the hospital, the pack is worried about Derek and go to warn him. Meanwhile, Allison goes home and gathers weapons. The Nagitsune appears in the form of her dead mother and goads her to also kill Scott, as he is a murderer. He plans to use the Oni to take out Scott's allies from the board, while she concentrates on the winning move, killing Scott. Lydia and Jackson go to the station and see the dead kitsune officer. At the high school locker room, Derek, who had come to cheer, helps Eli, who twists his ankle at the game. He convinces him to try and heal, but at that moment Allison attacks them. Derek fights her off, but is shocked to see her. As he tries to run, she puts an arrow through the side of his throat. Liam, Hikari, Malia, and Scott come in time, and she runs away. At the next arsonist crime scene, the officers figure out that the culprit is not an arsonist, but someone who wants something from the multiple fires. The Oni end up attacking them and stabbing Mason, who disappears. Parrish goes to the station, and the sheriff goes to the auto shop to warn the rest. Derek tells Scott to go after Eli since he can't heal. Malia corroborates that Eli is a werewolf as he has fangs, but is too afraid to turn. They take Derek home, where Peter is waiting for them. He turns on a blowtorch and says the only way to save Derek is to burn the wound, which will speed up his healing. Scott goes after Eli, and Melissa tells him to save Allison as well. Eli runs into the shop and hides, and Allison follows him. Scott comes in time to rescue Eli, and uses his true alpha roar to activate Eli's transformation, which heals his ankle. Scott tells him to go to his dad as he tries to reason with Allison. As Eli runs out, he ends up finding the sheriff. Liam and Hikari go to the station to get the sheriff, but find Lydia and Jackson. At Hales, Peter stops Chris as he thinks he will aid Allison in killing Eli. But Chris assures him that he knows his daughter is dead, and they end up teaming up to find the Allison illusion and kill her. Melissa tags along as they go to Hale Auto and find the trail of Allison and Scott. Meanwhile, Hikari and Liam tell Lydia that the hooded man, Harris, has been setting the fires. At Hales, Derek and Eli have a short-lived reunion as few of the Oni attack. Deaton, Derek, Sheriff, and Eli are stabbed. Only the sunlight stops them from taking Malia too as they disappear in the light. The rest go after Liam and Hikari, who are out looking for Scott. They are stabbed as well and disappear as they say they love each other. At the station, Lydia and Jackson are trying to figure out Harris' plan when Malia and Parrish tell them about the Oni. They go to one of the burn sites while Parrish and Malia collect silver weapons which can kill Oni. Lydia and Jackson realize that the rowan trees turn into mountain ash when burned and that the culprit must know chemistry as they used a special accelerant. In the forest, Scott lets Allison fatally stab him and asks if they can finally talk now that he is a dead man walking. He helps her remember her new motto that she had come up with to protect the weak, and she knocks him unconscious. She takes him to a storage room but starts having doubts. The Nagatsun uses Peter and the fact that he had killed her Aunt Kate to keep her focused. Scott wakes up and is worried about Hikari, who was also shot by Allison. She tells him that Hikari is a kitsune, so Wolfsbane won't hurt her, but the Oni will. He tells her that the Oni are the ones that killed her and she doesn't trust him. He makes a bargain that if she believes him, she will have to save him. We finally are taken to where Eli, Derek, and the rest who were stabbed are imprisoned in the Nagatsun's illusion. Hikari tells the prisoners that they won't die yet as their pain makes the Nagatsun stronger. Liam hears cheering and realizes that the illusion is next to the field where the lacrosse game is going on. Peter, Chris, and Melissa also end up at the stadium and wonder what the Nagatsun is up to. Lydia calls up Parrish and tells him about the fires and how it is similar to the one that killed Derek's family, which was caused by Kate Argent and Harris. On top of it, the only one who knows how to use the formula is supposed to be dead, alluding that Lydia suspects Harris is behind the fires. Meanwhile, Harris encircles the stadium with mountain ash. At the storehouse, Scott gives Allison a photo of them together at the ice rink. He then tells her about the school dance where he kissed her and told her he loved her. She remembers the events but doesn't remember Scott. He also tells her about their breakup, and she remembers the last thing he had told her. She tears up and decides to help him. She brings a flare to burn the wound, and she remembers Scott holding it when he had been possessed by the Dirac. Scott heals and realizes they are in the stadium. In the illusion, the Nagatsun is furious that Scott healed and decides to change up the game. He sends Eli in the middle of the lacrosse match. Scott follows Allison outside as she tries to find her father, and he tells her to be careful. She is surprised that he still cares and loves her. Scott notices Eli, and they attempt to exit the stadium, but they are blocked by the mountain ash barrier. They approach Coach and implore him to get the spectators to evacuate since they are in danger. However, Coach informs them that the only solution to the problem is to win the game. Scott and Eli ultimately agree to participate in the game. At the outskirts, Lydia and Jackson spot Harris, who shoots Jackson. Lydia tries to stop him, and he tells her about his revenge as she and the pack had offered him as a sacrifice for the Dirac. He takes Lydia to the entrance of the field and shows that it is a portal to the illusion. Derek and Sheriff are seen talking about Eli's inability to transform because he had been traumatized when Derek had shifted to save him from a coyote when he was a kid. Outside, Harris tells Lydia to share her pain for the Nagatsun by threatening Jackson. She tells him about Styles and the reason she left him was because of a premonition. They are in a car crash and he dies. She says that she left because the car crash will never happen if she isn't with him. The dream is also why she stopped using her whaling powers. Allison watches the match and finds Scott cute as he messes up. Eli makes the goal and they win the game. At that moment, Peter attacks Allison but Chris poisons him with wolfsbane as he says he always knew she was his daughter. Melissa heals Peter while Chris and Allison hug. But the illusion takes Allison, Eli, and Scott. Malia and Parrish come to the stadium and she tells him to break the barrier with his hellhound fire. Allison and Scott fight the Oni to buy Parrish time to enter the illusion with Silver, while Eli goes to free Derek. However, they are outnumbered and almost defeated, which prompts Lydia to wail. The wail pushes the Oni out of the illusion and brings back all of Allison's memories. But the Nagatsun has Eli by the throat while the Oni threaten Melissa, Peter, and Chris. Scott surrenders and tells Allison to kill him. She is upset but does as he says and shoots him in the heart. As he falls in his arms, the Oni leave Peter, Melissa, and Chris alone while the Nagatsun taunts Scott. However, it turns out that he was shielded by Hikari's foxfire and he heals. Allison shoots the Nagatsun in the head while Parrish breaks the barrier. Peter, Melissa, Chris, Mason, and Melia enter and start killing the Oni with Silver. Meanwhile, Jackson and Lydia disarm Harris in the confusion. Derek and Eli free the rest, but the Nagatsun reminds them that Scott had once bitten him and he turns into a werewolf. He separates Scott, Eli, and Derek in another illusion, but they free themselves by signaling each other. Eli is thrown off, and Parrish comes to burn the Nagatsun. Derek tells Scott to look after Elias, his pack member, and throws him off. He holds the Nagatsun down while Parrish's fire burns them both. Derek turns into a true alpha before he dies. Everyone returns to the real world and Scott and Allison kiss. Scott then hugs Eli while Allison reunites with Lydia and Jackson. At the funeral, Scott remembers Derek while Sheriff gives Styles' Jeep to Eli. He tells him that Derek was the one who brought it to Hale Auto and fixed it. At the end of it all, Allison and Scott end up together, running an animal shelter. Although she feels a twinge of regret for having lost so much time, Scott reassures her that he doesn't feel that way anymore because he has a bright future ahead with her. They both smile and share a loving kiss. At the same time, Harris' transport to prison is interrupted, and he is forcibly removed from the vehicle by guards from Icon House. Despite his protests that he poses no danger and shouldn't be held in the supernatural mental institution, he is taken away by the guards. If you are still there, please do subscribe for more such contents.